before we get on with tonight's show, I want to take a moment to say this. On behalf of me, Angela, and everyone here at the Dark Dialogue Podcast Network, happy holidays to every single one of you. However you're spending this season, whether that's surrounded by family, chosen family, friends, or just getting through it one day at a time, we're genuinely grateful that you choose to spend some of that time here with us. These stories matter because you listen, because you care, and because you keep these conversations alive. As we close out this year, I also want to invite you to join us for something special. On New Year's night, we're going live with a Dark Dialogue live show. It's a chance to hang out together in real time. We talk about the cases, the stories, the strange and the serious, and look ahead at what's coming next for the network in the year ahead. No edits, no polish, just real conversation live. If you want to join us, you can find all of the details and the live stream link right now at darkdialogue.com/live. You can set a reminder, bookmark it, and jump in with us when we go live. So wherever you're listening from, thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting independent storytelling, and we hope you'll ring in the new year with us live. From all of us here at Dark Dialogue, happy holidays, take care of each other, and keep the dialogue alive. Christmas is supposed to be a pause, a moment where the year exhales, where the noise quiets, the arguments are shelved, and even the most fractured families agree, at least on the surface, to play nice for one day. Lights go up, music plays, tables are set, and we tell ourselves that peace is something that you can schedule. But for some households, Christmas doesn't calm the storm, it traps it. Pressure builds instead of releasing. Financial stress, resentment, jealousy, control, fear. Things that already exist year-round get compressed into one confined space. Expectations rise, alcohol flows more freely, and the people who live with violence every other day of the year don't suddenly get a holiday from it. In fact, Christmas often makes it worse. Because now the abuse has an audience. Now there's nowhere to leave. Now there's the added humiliation of pretending everything is fine. Today's Distilled episode is about what happens inside the home when the outside world is wrapped in tinsel and forced smiles. These are not random acts. These are not holiday crimes committed by strangers passing through the night. These are acts of domestic violence, relationships already fractured, already dangerous, that reached a breaking point on Christmas. Some of these cases involve family annihilations. Some involve partners who snapped under pressure. Some involve warning signs that were visible long before the tree went up, ignored because it was easier to believe that the holidays would somehow fix what was already broken. They didn't. Christmas didn't create these monsters, but it gave them a moment. We're going to move through these stories in a more distilled way because this format isn't about reciting every detail. It's about the pattern, the realization that these tragedies don't exist in isolation. From the Michael Anderson Carnation murders to children killed by the people meant to protect them, to cases where the violence was already escalating, already documented, already feared. Each story points to the same uncomfortable truth. For many victims of domestic abuse, holidays are not safe. They're dangerous. The idea of Christmas as a universal sanctuary is a comforting lie. And like most comforting lies, it allows us to look away from bruises, from control, from fear, because acknowledging them would ruin the picture. But violence doesn't take the days off. Control doesn't soften for tradition. And love, when it curdles into possession, doesn't care what's written on the calendar. This episode isn't about fear-mongering, it's about honesty, because every one of these stories forces us to confront the same reality. Christmas doesn't cause domestic violence, it exposes it. And as we move through these cases, I want you to remember this. None of these tragedies began on Christmas morning. They just finally showed themselves when there was nowhere left to hide. Welcome back to Dark Dialogue Distilled. This is the space where I step away from the long-form structure and focus on the part of the story that doesn't fit right, the patterns, the blind spots, the moments that get lost when a case is reduced to headlines, the unique angles, whatever it may be. If this is your first time here, I'm your host, John, and Distilled exists because some stories don't need hours of timeline to hit hard. Sometimes after those episodes, there's questions still left, things left on the cutting room floor, and sometimes you just need to look straight at the thing that we don't like talking about. Because before we get into today's episode, I do want to ask a quick favor. If you find value in this show, if these conversations matter to you, please take a second to like, follow, or subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. Rate and review the show if your platform allows it, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you're subscribed and turn on notifications so you don't miss future episodes. Those small actions make a huge difference. They help this work reach people who might not be looking for it yet, but might need it. Today's episode is a Christmas Distilled special, focused on a difficult but necessary theme: domestic violence gone awry during the holidays. These are not random crimes. These are not isolated moments of chaos. They're warnings that we've seen before, repeating themselves under Christmas lights. So let's get into it. Christmas Day, 1929. Stokes County, North Carolina. Charles, or Charlie Lawson, was not a drifter, a criminal, or an outsider. He was a tobacco farmer, a husband, and the father of 7 living children. His family lived modestly on a small farm near Germantown. Poor, yes, but not uniquely so for rural North Carolina at the end of the 1920s. To neighbors, the Lawsons looked like countless other families scraping by in the Piedmont. Hard work, long days, church, children helping with chores. No public record of violence, no prior arrests, nothing that would suggest what was coming. And yet, days before Christmas, something shifted. In the week leading up to December 25th, Charlie Lawson did something deeply out of character for a struggling sharecropper. He took his wife Fanny and all 7 children into Winston-Salem. He bought them new clothes, not secondhand, not hand-me-downs, brand new outfits. Then he paid for a formal family portrait. That portrait still exists. It shows the entire family seated neatly, dressed in their best, faces solemn rather than joyful. For decades, that image has unsettled historians and true crime researchers alike, because in hindsight, it reads less like a keepsake and more like a final arrangement. On Christmas morning, the Lawson household appeared to be preparing for a normal holiday. Marie, the eldest daughter, was reportedly baking a Christmas cake. Other family members were tending chores and getting ready for relatives who were expected to visit later that day. Charlie Lawson made sure one person wouldn't be there. He sent his eldest surviving son, Arthur, away from the property on an errand, removing the only other able-bodied male from the scene. Then, he began killing his family. 2 of his daughters, Carrie and Maybelle, were ambushed near the family's tobacco barn as they walked along the farm road. Charlie waited for them with a shotgun. After shooting them, he bludgeoned their bodies. He later arranged them carefully, arms crossed, stones placed beneath their heads like pillows. This detail matters. That kind of staging is not panic. It's not loss of control. It is deliberate. Charlie then returned to the house where he shot his wife, Fanny, on or near the front porch. Inside the home, chaos followed. Marie screamed. The younger boys tried to hide. Charlie shot Marie, then hunted down James and Raymond, killing them as well. His infant daughter, 4-month-old Mary Lou, was killed last, reportedly beaten rather than shot. When the bodies were discovered, they were not scattered randomly. They were placed, ordered, positioned. Afterward, Charlie Lawson walked away from the house and into the woods. Evidence later showed that he paced around a tree for hours, his footprints forming a circle, before finally taking his own life with the shotgun. Relatives arriving for Christmas visits found the bodies. A shot rang out from the woods while people were already gathering. A search party followed the sound and found Charlie dead. In his pockets were handwritten notes containing fragments like "trouble can cause" and "no one to blame but," incomplete thoughts that have never been fully explained. No clear motive was established at the time, and nearly a century later, none has been proven. Over the years, theories multiplied. Some pointed to mental illness or a head injury Charlie reportedly suffered months earlier, followed by headaches and personality changes. Others focused on later allegations that Charlie may have been sexually abusing his teenage daughter Marie and that she may have been pregnant. A theory based largely on post-event statements, not on contemporaneous evidence. Still others pointed to financial pressure, shame, or perceived failure in the wake of the 1929 stock market crash. The truth is, we don't know which, if any, of these explanations are correct. What we do know is this: the Lawson murders were not a sudden snap on Christmas morning. They were preceded by planning, by isolation, by quiet, irreversible decisions made before the holiday arrived. Christmas did not cause this violence. Christmas exposed it. The Lawson family murders stand as one of the earliest, most chilling examples of a pattern that still repeats today. Domestic violence escalating under the weight of expectation, confinement, and the unbearable pressure to appear normal. For the Lawson family, Christmas was not a refuge. It was the day the private horror became public. Case 2. Christmas Eve, 1945, Fayetteville, West Virginia. 16 years after the Lawson family was wiped out on Christmas morning, another American family would lose multiple children on Christmas. But this time, the violence didn't arrive with a shotgun. It arrived with fire. George and Jenny Sodder were not struggling farmers. They were immigrants who had done well. George had built a successful trucking and coal hauling business, and by local standards, the Sodders were prosperous. They had 10 children, a 2-story home, stability. But stability does not mean safety. In the months leading up to Christmas 1945, the Sodders experienced a series of incidents that, in hindsight, read like warnings. George was outspoken, loudly and publicly, in his hatred of Benito Mussolini and fascist Italy. That stance earned him enemies within parts of the local Italian community, some of whom openly resented his views. There were threats. A life insurance salesman, angry after George refused a policy, reportedly warned him that his house would go up in smoke and his children would be destroyed because of his political opinions. A stranger was seen watching the Sodder children near the road, commenting ominously about their school bus. An unfamiliar car appeared repeatedly near the house. These weren't abstract fears, they were personal. On Christmas Eve, the family gathered for a modest celebration. Their eldest daughter, Marion, came home from work with gifts for her younger sisters. The children begged to stay up late to play with their toys. George and Jenny eventually went to bed, believing most of the household had settled down. Shortly after midnight, Jenny received a strange phone call. A woman's voice asked for someone Jenny didn't recognize. There was laughter in the background. The call ended abruptly. Jenny later described it as unsettling, but she dismissed it. Around 1 a.m., Jenny was jolted awake by a loud thud on the roof, followed by the smell of smoke. The house was on fire. The blaze appeared to start near the fuse box and telephone line in George's office, a location that would later raise serious questions. Flames spread rapidly through the wooden structure. Jenny woke George and some of the older children. They managed to escape with their youngest daughter, Sylvia. 5 children did not: Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, Betty. As the house burned, the family tried desperately to reach them and ran into a series of obstacles that would haunt this case forever. George's work trucks, which he normally parked near the house and intended to use as ladders, would not start, despite working just the day before. The ladder normally leaning against the house was gone, later found down an embankment. Attempts to call the fire department failed. The phone line was dead. By the time help arrived hours later, the house was gone, and there were no bodies. No skulls, no long bones, no identifiable remains of 5 children. Authorities quickly ruled that the children had died in the fire, suggesting the heat had completely cremated them. Death certificates were issued within days, case closed. The Sodders refused to accept it. Jenny conducted her own experiments, burning animal bones in her stove and consulting cremation experts. She was told repeatedly that even intense fires leave fragments behind, yet recognizable household items were still present in the debris, while 5 human bodies had supposedly vanished without a trace. Then came the anomalies. The phone company confirmed the line had been cut, not burned. A man later admitted stealing equipment from George's property and was accused of cutting the line. A small rubber object believed to resemble an incendiary device was found near the house. Rumors emerged that the fire chief had buried a supposed human organ at the scene, which turned out to be animal tissue. In 1949, an independent excavation uncovered bone fragments that didn't belong to the children and showed no signs of fire exposure. And the sightings began. Children resembling the missing Sodders were reportedly seen in West Virginia, New York, Florida, always accompanied by adults who refused to let them speak. Decades later, Jenny received a photograph of a grown man believed to resemble her missing son Louis, mailed anonymously with a cryptic note. The Sodders never rebuilt their home. Instead, they built a memorial. They placed a billboard along the highway displaying the children's faces and names, offering a reward, refusing for the rest of their lives to move on. Officially, the case remains an accidental fire. But culturally, emotionally, the Sodder case occupies a darker space. It forces the same question that echoes through every Christmas tragedy in this episode. What happens when danger doesn't come from outside the family, but from forces already circling it? Whether the Sodder children died in the fire or were taken during it, Christmas was not the cause, it was the cover. Case 3, Christmas Eve 2007, Carnation, Washington. By the time Michelle Anderson pulled the trigger, this wasn't a family dispute anymore. It was a grievance that had curdled into entitlement and then hardened into execution. The Anderson family had lived for decades on a rural, wooded property outside Carnation. Wayne and Judy Anderson raised their children there, built stability there, and eventually allowed their youngest daughter Michelle and her boyfriend, Joseph McEnroe, to live on the same land in a mobile home a short walk away. That proximity mattered because proximity doesn't just breed familiarity, it intensifies resentment. By late 2007, Michelle believed she had been wronged for years. She claimed her older brother, Scott, owed her tens of thousands of dollars. She believed her parents had taken his side. When Wayne and Judy finally told Michelle and McEnroe they needed to start paying rent after years of living rent-free, Michelle didn't hear boundaries. She heard betrayal. In the weeks before Christmas, Michelle talked openly about killing her family. Not in metaphor, not in anger, in planning. She and McEnroe armed themselves with 2 handguns. They discussed timing. They chose Christmas Eve deliberately because everyone would be home. This wasn't a snap, it was a decision. On the afternoon of December 24th, Michelle and McEnroe walked from their mobile home to Wayne and Judy's house under the pretense of joining the family gathering. Judy was in the back room wrapping Christmas presents for her grandchildren. Wayne was in the living room. Michelle confronted her father first. She tried to shoot him and failed. Whether the gun jammed or she missed doesn't matter. What matters is what happened next. Joseph McEnroe stepped in and shot Wayne in the head. Judy ran towards the noise, screaming. McEnroe shot her too. When she didn't die immediately, he later told police he apologized to her and then shot her again in the head. Execution followed by apology. Michelle and McEnroe dragged Wayne and Judy's bodies into a shed behind the house. Then they cleaned the scene. They wiped blood. They waited. Hours later, Scott Anderson arrived with his wife Erica and their 2 children, 5-year-old Olivia and 3-year-old Nathan, for Christmas Eve. They never had a chance. As soon as they entered the house, Michelle and McEnroe opened fire. Erica managed to dial 911 before the phone was ripped from her hands and smashed. Deputies were dispatched, but when they reached the locked gate and saw no obvious disturbance, they left. Inside the house, the killings continued. Scott and Erica were shot, and then came the children. McEnroe told investigators that Michelle insisted the kids could not be left alive, that they'd be, quote, scarred for life if they survived. So, they didn't survive. Olivia was shot in the head. Nathan picked up the phone batteries scattered on the floor. McEnroe said the child looked at him with complete comprehension. Then Nathan was shot too. 6 people were murdered, 3 generations erased. When the bodies were discovered 2 days later, Michelle and McEnroe returned to the scene and were quickly identified as suspects. Both eventually confessed in detail. Both were convicted. Both received life sentences without parole. There was no mystery here, no ambiguity. This was domestic violence stripped of excuses. What makes the Carnation murders especially chilling in a Christmas context is how ordinary the grievances were. Money disputes, favoritism, hurt pride, the kinds of resentments families navigate every day until someone decides they're entitled to blood. Christmas didn't make Michelle Anderson violent. It gave her the opportunity to gather everyone in one place. This wasn't rage, it wasn't desperation, it was punishment. And in that sense, the Carnation murders are one of the most brutally honest examples in this episode when domestic violence is driven by entitlement and control. The holiday doesn't stop it, it concentrates it. Case 4. Christmas Eve 2008, Covina, California. This time, the violence arrived wearing a Santa-suit. Bruce Jeffrey Pardo was 45 years old, recently divorced, unemployed, and drowning in resentment. Days before Christmas, his marriage to Sylvia Ortega Pardo officially ended, a divorce that stripped him, in his mind, of money, dignity, and control. Court-ordered support payments, asset losses, and mounting debt left him humiliated and furious. But Bruce Pardo didn't aim his rage at the system. He aimed it at his family. Sylvia's family, the Ortegas, were known in Covina for their warmth and hospitality. Every Christmas Eve, they gathered dozens of relatives in their home for food, music, and celebration. Children ran through the house, doors were open. It was the kind of gathering people assume is safe. Pardo knew that. On the night of December 24th, he dressed as Santa Claus. Red suit, white trim, fake beard, and drove to the Ortega home with guns and an incendiary device hidden inside what looked like a wrapped Christmas present. At around 11:30 p.m., he knocked on the door. An 8-year-old girl, excited to see Santa, opened it. Pardo shot her in the face. She survived, barely. But the moment the shot rang out, the illusion shattered. Pardo stepped into the house and began firing into the crowded living room. He carried multiple semi-automatic handguns and spare magazines, allowing him to shoot continuously as people tried to flee, hide, or shield each other. Some jumped out of second-story windows, some crawled across the floor, some never had a chance. One wounded survivor made it to a neighbor's house and called 911, identifying the shooter as Santa and as Bruce. Inside, after the gunfire, Pardo moved to the second phase of his plan. The present that he had carried inside wasn't a gift. It was a modified air compressor filled with racing fuel. He sprayed gasoline throughout the house, on furniture, floors, and likely on some of the victims, turning the home into a pressure cooker. When the fuel ignited, the house exploded into flames. The fire burned so intensely that first responders struggled to identify bodies. 9 members of the Ortega family were killed. Grandparents, parents, a teenage boy, multiple generations erased in minutes. The home itself became a crematory. Pardo was burned badly in the fire, suffering severe third-degree burns. That injury likely saved lives elsewhere because it disrupted what investigators later learned was a much larger plan. He fled the scene, changed clothes, and drove to his brother's home in Sylmar. Hours later, alone and in pain, Bruce Pardo shot himself in the head. After his death, police uncovered the scope of what he had intended. Ours staged around Southern California. Maps, airline tickets, cash strapped to his body, explosives rigged in his Santa-suit to detonate if handled. Investigators believe that he planned to kill more people, possibly his ex-wife's divorce attorney, possibly even his own mother, before fleeing the country. The Covina massacre is often remembered for the costume, the shock value, the horror of Santa becoming a killer. But strip that away, and what's left is familiar. A man who felt entitled to control, a man who interpreted consequences as betrayal, a man who decided that if he couldn't have his life the way he wanted it, no one else would either. Christmas didn't trigger Bruce Pardo. It gave him access. It gave him an audience. And it gave him the chance to turn a family celebration into a crime scene, one that still defines the word holiday massacre more than a decade later. 2 cases, 1 year. By the time we reach 2011, this is no longer history repeating itself every few decades. It's happening multiple times in the same year. 2 different households, 2 different dynamics, the same holiday. The first of those cases is not a mass killing. It doesn't involve guns or arson, and in some ways, that makes it harder to hear. Christmas Eve into Christmas morning 2011, Anaheim, California. Zazelle Preston was 26 years old. She was a mother of 3, and she was studying to become a domestic violence counselor. That detail matters, not because it saved her, but because it exposes one of the most persistent myths about abuse, that knowledge alone is enough to escape it. It isn't. Zazelle was married to William Wallace, a man with a documented history of abusing her. He had already been jailed for beating her in the past. Friends and family knew the relationship was volatile. Zazelle herself had expressed fear about Wallace's temper. But, like many survivors, she stayed, trying to hold a family together, trying to create stability for her children, trying to believe that things could improve. They didn't. On Christmas Eve, Zazelle and Wallace attended a neighbor's holiday party near their Anaheim apartment. Both had been drinking. Later that night, neighbors reported hearing arguing and sounds of a disturbance after the couple returned home. At some point between late Christmas Eve and the early hours of Christmas morning, Wallace brutally beat Zazelle inside their apartment. The injuries were severe. Blunt force trauma to her head and face, evidence of repeated blows. Prosecutors would later argue convincingly that the pattern of injuries could not be explained by a single accidental fall, despite Wallace's claim that she had tripped into a glass table. This was not an accident. It was the culmination of years of violence. By the time Zazelle died, their 3 children were in the apartment, a 7-week-old baby boy and 2 daughters, about 3 and 8 years old. And then Wallace made a choice that still defies comprehension. Instead of calling for help, he staged her body. He moved Zazelle from the bedroom to the living room couch. He placed sunglasses on her face. He positioned her to look as though she were simply passed out. And on Christmas morning, he woke the children. He told them their mother had ruined Christmas by getting drunk. Then he had them open their presents in front of her dead body. The children laughed, tore wrapping paper, played with toys, all while their mother sat motionless on the couch beside them. Only later, after calling family members, did Wallace finally dial 911. Paramedics found Zazelle unresponsive. She was taken to the hospital and pronounced dead. Medical findings made the truth unavoidable. Fatal blunt force trauma, consistent with a beating, layered over a known history of domestic abuse. The children had been present throughout the night and the morning. Prosecutors later emphasized that they didn't just lose their mother, they were forced to participate in a performance of normalcy around her death. It took years for the case to reach trial. But in 2021, a jury found William Wallace guilty of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 15 years to life in prison. No holiday discount, no accident narrative accepted. Zazelle Preston's death is one of the clearest examples in this episode of what domestic violence looks like when it reaches its end stage. Not explosive, not public, but intimate, controlled, and devastating. Christmas didn't provoke this killing. It simply removed the last excuse to leave. And in the next 2011 case, we'll see a very different dynamic, but the same result: a holiday that did not protect the people inside the home. Christmas morning 2011, Grapevine, Texas. By the end of 2011, this was no longer about coincidence. Two separate Christmas killings, two separate families, the same year. And this one unfolded in broad daylight, in front of a Christmas tree. Azizola Aziz Yazdan Panah was 56 years old, an Iranian-born immigrant, a father of two, and a man whose life had unraveled in ways he could not accept. His marriage was over. His home had been foreclosed. His wife, Nazreen, had moved out with their children and filed for bankruptcy. Control, financial, familial, personal, had slipped from his hands. And like so many perpetrators in this episode, Aziz did not interpret loss as loss. He interpreted it as theft. On the morning of December 25th, Nazreen hosted a Christmas gathering inside her Grapevine apartment near Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. Present were her children, 19-year-old Nona, a 14-year-old Ali, along with her sister, brother-in-law, and niece. Gifts had been opened, wrapping paper littered the living room floor, pajamas, coffee, a television on in the background. A normal Christmas morning. Then Aziz arrived. He was dressed as Santa Claus, not as a joke, not as a surprise, as a statement. Text messages sent just minutes before the killing show how completely disarmed the family was. Aziz was seen as awkward, maybe inappropriate, but not dangerous. An estranged father trying too hard, showing up late, wanting to be included, he positioned himself as festive, harmless. Inside the apartment, Aziz produced two handguns. What followed was fast and final. He shot everyone in the living room, his estranged wife, his two children, and her relatives, amid the open gifts and Christmas decorations. Ballistics later showed that he used both weapons, firing repeatedly at close range. There was no struggle, no chance to escape. A 911 call came from inside the apartment around 11:36 a.m. At first, it sounded like silence, but when investigators reviewed it carefully, they heard whispering, a man's voice saying, "Help me," and "I'm shooting people." Police believe Aziz himself made the call. Even in the final moments, he was manipulating the narrative. When officers arrived, they forced entry and found 7 bodies. Aziz was among them, dead by suicide near the front door. Investigators later determined that he had placed one of the guns in his brother-in-law's hand, attempting to frame him as the shooter and spread blame beyond himself. It didn't work. This was a murder-suicide, a family annihilation, a Christmas staged as theater. There was no manifesto, no note, but the message was unmistakable. If Aziz could not have his family, no one could. What makes the Dallas Christmas killings especially haunting isn't just the Santa-suit, it's the setting. Children killed after opening presents, a living room frozen in celebration and death at the same time, a holiday ritual transformed into a crime scene without warning. This wasn't random violence. This wasn't mental collapse alone. This was entitlement meeting opportunity. Christmas didn't cause Aziz Yazdan Panah to kill his family. It gave him the stage, the symbolism, and the access, and he used all three. And with that, 2011 closes as one of the darkest years in this episode, proof that Christmas violence isn't a relic of the past, it's a pattern. By 2014, this pattern isn't slowing down. Once again, the same calendar year gives us 2 Christmas killings, driven by control, secrecy, and entitlement, but carried out in radically different ways. The first of those doesn't happen inside a family home. It happens behind closed doors, under the promise of love. Christmas Eve 2014. Coventry to Leicester, England. Samina Imam was 34 years old. She was successful, driven, and building a life that finally felt like it was moving forward. She worked as a regional marketing manager for Costco, traveled frequently, and was close with her family. What they didn't know, what very few people knew, was that Samina had been in a secret relationship for nearly 2 years. The man was Roger Cooper, her colleague, her lover, and already committed to someone else. Roger had built a double life, a long-term partner at home, and a hidden relationship with Samina that existed in hotel rooms, work trips, and carefully managed lies. Company rules forbade relationships between managers and staff, but that wasn't the real reason the affair stayed secret. Roger wanted everything, and accountability for none of it. By late 2014, Samina was done waiting. She wanted a real relationship, not a hidden one. She gave Roger an ultimatum: leave his partner by Christmas or the affair was over. Roger told her what she wanted to hear. He promised they would spend Christmas together as a couple. Samina believed him. She booked a luxury hotel in Birmingham for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. She made plans to see her family on Boxing Day. She left work early on December 24th, stopped by Marks and Spencer to buy drinks and snacks, and phoned her sister to confirm her arrival on the 26th. She never made it to the hotel. Instead, Samina was lured to Leicester, to the home of Roger's younger brother, David Cooper. This wasn't a detour, it was a destination. Roger and David had been planning for weeks. David, a former soldier, had bought chloroform online in advance. They discussed getting rid of Samina if she continued demanding that Roger choose. Inside David's cluttered house, Samina was attacked. A chloroform-soaked cloth was held over her face until she suffocated. The court would later make clear this was not an accident, and it wasn't a miscalculation. It was a planned killing. Within hours, Roger left Leicester and returned home. To spend Christmas with the woman that he had chosen to keep, David wrapped Samina's body, drove it to his allotment, and buried her in a shallow grave. Then, the brothers staged a disappearance. Samina's car was abandoned miles away. Her phone was used to send texts suggesting she'd left voluntarily. A Merry Christmas message was sent from her phone to Roger himself, meant to prove she was alive on Christmas Day. It didn't. Samina failed to check into her hotel. She didn't arrive in London, her bank accounts went untouched, her family reported her missing, and detectives began pulling CCTV, phone data, and license plate records. Every road led back to Leicester. Police searched David's home and found Samina's belongings, the drink she'd bought, her sat-nav hidden in the loft. Archaeologists were brought in to excavate the allotment. They found the edge of a sleeping bag. Beneath it was Samina. In 2015, both Roger and David Cooper were convicted of her murder. Each received a life sentence with a minimum of 30 years. This was not a crime of passion. It was a crime of convenience. Samina Imam was killed because she stopped accepting secrecy, because she demanded honesty, because she refused to remain hidden. Christmas didn't make this murder happen. It simply provided the deadline. And in the second 2014 case, the violence will return to a family home, but the motivation will feel chillingly familiar. Christmas Eve 2014, Paradise Township, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. This one doesn't involve a Santa-suit. There's no elaborate plan, no secondary location, no manifesto, just a house, a marriage, and a moment that turned fatal. Stephanie Kilhefner was 34 years old, a mother of 2 children, ages 2 and 5. On December 24th, she spent the day running errands, finishing preparations, doing the ordinary, invisible work that keeps a family moving toward Christmas morning. Neighbors later said nothing seemed out of place, nothing felt wrong. That night, after the children were put to bed, Stephanie and her husband Dustin Klopp argued inside their home. Police have never released the precise cause of the argument, only that it escalated rapidly and catastrophically. What happened next was not a single act of violence, it was a sequence. According to investigators, Dustin punched Stephanie in the face, knocking her to the floor. While she was down, he retrieved a knife and slashed her throat, inflicting a deep, fatal wound. That still wasn't enough. He then got an axe and struck her in the head multiple times. This was not loss of control, this was overkill. Afterward, Dustin moved into concealment. He placed Stephanie's body into a large, hefty-duty bag. He carried it outside and hid it in a shed on the property. He attempted to clean the blood inside the house, and then he went to sleep. On Christmas Day, Dustin woke up, gathered the children, and drove them to his parents' home to celebrate. He told family members that Stephanie was not feeling well, that she had a headache and was resting. The children opened presents, the family ate together, Christmas happened, all while Stephanie's body lay hidden in a shed a few yards away. Nearly a full day passed before law enforcement was notified. Later, on December 25th, Dustin called Pennsylvania State Police and said his wife was dead and that he wanted to turn himself in. He drove to the barracks, confessed, and directed officers back to the house. They found Stephanie exactly where he said she would be. Dustin was charged with criminal homicide, abuse of a corpse, and evidence tampering. But there would be no trial. While awaiting court proceedings, Dustin attempted suicide in jail. He was declared brain dead and died days later. The case closed without a verdict, not because the truth was unclear, but because the perpetrator removed himself from accountability. Stephanie Kilhefner's killing is one of the starkest examples in this episode of what domestic violence often looks like at its most common and most lethal. No warning signs that neighbors can see, no dramatic lean-up, just escalation. Fists, then blade, then blunt force, followed by concealment and denial. Christmas didn't cause this murder either. It simply allowed the lie of normalcy to continue for one more day. And that's where this episode ends. Not with a mystery, not with symbolism, but with the reality that runs through every case that we've talked about. The holidays do not protect victims of domestic violence. They often isolate them. They compress pressure. They reward appearances. And they give abusers the cover of expectation that everything should look fine. It isn't. And if there's one truth that connects every story in this episode, it's this: violence doesn't take the holidays off. It just waits for the door to close. After everything we've talked about in this episode, it would be easy to walk away with a simple conclusion: that Christmas is the most dangerous time of the year, that domestic violence explodes, that murders spike, that suicides surge. But here's the paradox: that isn't what the research actually shows. When you zoom out and look at national, year-long data, intimate partner violence is not highest in December. Large crime surveys consistently show that overall IPV rates tend to peak in summer, not winter. December often falls on the lower end of the annual curve. And suicides? Despite what most people believe, December is one of the lowest suicide months of the year. Year after year, the data shows suicides peaking in late spring and summer, not during the holidays. So why does Christmas feel so dangerous? Because two things can be true at the same time. On a macro level, December is not the deadliest month. But on a micro level, Christmas is a high-risk moment. Police departments, emergency rooms, and domestic violence hotlines consistently report short, sharp spikes in calls and injuries around Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and the days immediately following. These aren't year-long trends, they're concentrated bursts. Think of it like pressure versus volume. Summer may have more total incidents spread over time. Christmas concentrates stress into a very small window. Financial strain, alcohol, family proximity, nowhere to go, services operating at reduced capacity, and enormous social pressure to pretend everything is fine. For households already living with tension or abuse, Christmas doesn't create violence, it compresses it. That's why we see more police calls, more emergency room visits, more crisis line contacts, and in some cases, like the ones that we've covered, violence turns lethal. This is also where the suicide myth persists. While suicide deaths drop in December, distress absolutely rises. Depression, loneliness, substance abuse, and crisis line activity all increase during the holidays. The danger isn't that more people die by suicide at Christmas, it's that more people are struggling, and many of them doing it quietly. When the calendar flips to January, that's often when the risk rebounds. So the truth sets in the middle. Christmas is not statistically the deadliest season overall, but it is a documented high-risk period for escalation. A moment when existing abuse is more likely to surface, when arguments turn physical, when control tightens, when people delay asking for help because it's the holidays. That's why episodes like this exist. Not to claim that Christmas causes violence, not to sensationalize tragedy, but to make one thing unmistakably clear. The holidays do not protect people living with abuse, and silence, especially seasonal silence, can be dangerous. Violence doesn't peak because of Christmas. It peaks when pressure meets opportunity, and Christmas provides both. As we close this episode, it's worth taking a breath and looking back at what we just carried together. We moved from 1929, where the Lawson family was erased behind closed doors on Christmas morning, to 1945, where 5 Sodder children vanished into fire and uncertainty on Christmas Eve, to 2007, when resentment and entitlement culminated in the Carnation murders, to 2008, when a Santa-suit became a weapon in Covina, to 2011, a year that gave us 2 separate Christmas tragedies, Zazelle Preston, killed quietly by the man who claimed to love her, and the Dallas Christmas killings, where an entire family was executed under a tree surrounded by wrapping paper. And finally, 2014, where Samita Imam was silenced because she asked for honesty, and Stephanie Kilhefner was killed in her own home after putting her children to bed on Christmas Eve. Different countries, different decades, different dynamics, the same outcome. These stories aren't connected by Christmas because Christmas is violent. They're connected because violence doesn't pause for tradition. And still, this episode is not meant to leave you hopeless. In fact, it's the opposite, because Christmas is also about something else. It's about showing up. It's about checking in, about listening when something feels off, about understanding that not every smile at a family gathering means someone is safe. And it's about remembering that people who live with fear don't suddenly stop needing support because the calendar says holiday. So this is where I want to speak directly to you. From me, from Angela, from everyone behind the Dark Dialogue podcast, thank you for listening. Thank you for trusting us with these stories. Thank you for carrying them respectfully. And thank you for being the kind of audience that understands why these conversations matter, even when they're hard. If this episode stirred something in you, concern for someone you love, recognition of your own experience, or even just a quiet unease, please do not ignore that. Reach out, check in, offer help, ask for it if you need it. The holidays can magnify everything, the good and the bad. And while we can't undo the tragedies that we talked about tonight, we can honor the people at the center of them by refusing to look away. Christmas is supposed to be about light. Sometimes the most meaningful light that we can offer is simply being present when someone else is in the dark. From all of us here at Dark Dialogue, however you celebrate, wherever you are, and whatever this season looks like for you, you are not alone. And your story matters. So Merry Christmas. Before we end, we need to pause, because behind every case that we talked about tonight, behind every headline, every statistic, every theory, there are names that deserve to be spoken gently. And this is for them. For Fanny Lawson and her children, Arthur, Marie, Carrie, Maybelle, James, Raymond, and baby Mary Lou, a family frozen in time by a photograph taken just days before Christmas in 1929. For the Sodder children, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty. For the Sodder children, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, whose absence has echoed through nearly 80 Christmases. 5 chairs forever empty. For Wayne and Judy Anderson, for Scott and Erica, and for Olivia and Nathan, whose laughter should have filled a home in Carnation in 2007 and never did. For the Ortega family in Covina, Joseph, Alicia, James, Teresa, Charles, Cherry, Michael, Alicia, and Sylvia, a Christmas Eve table turned into ashes and silence. For Zazelle Preston, a young mother, a student, a woman who wanted to help others escape what she could not. And for her children, who deserved a Christmas morning with their mother alive. For Nona Yazdanpanah and Ali Yazdanpanah, children who opened presents on Christmas morning in 2011 and never left the room alive. And for their mother, Nazreen, and her family whose holiday ended in gunfire. For Samina Imam, who believed love would finally meet her in honesty and instead met betrayal wrapped in a Christmas promise. And for Stephanie Kilhefner, a mother who tucked her children into bed on Christmas Eve in 2014, never knowing it would be the last thing she did. Tonight, we don't remember how they died. We remember how they lived. They were daughters and sons, mothers and fathers, children, siblings, all of them loved. Christmas is meant to be a time of remembrance, of reflection, of hope. So if you light a candle this season, let it be for them. If you sit at a table, notice the empty chairs and remember that safety is never guaranteed by tradition alone. And if you are listening to this while carrying grief, fear, or memories that resurface every December, please hear this clearly. You matter, you are seen, and you are not forgotten. From me and from Angela, from everyone at the Dark Dialogue Podcast Network, this tribute is for the voices silenced too soon, for the families forever changed, and for the belief that remembrance itself is a form of justice. This Christmas, we remember them. As we step away from this episode, I want to thank you for staying with us through stories that are not easy to hear, especially at this time of year. Distilled exists because some conversations don't need spectacle, they need space. And tonight's episode was about making space for truth, for remembrance, and for the people whose lives were taken behind closed doors when the world assumed everything was calm. From me and from Angela and from the entire Dark Dialogue Podcast Network, we appreciate you, your time, your trust, and your willingness to sit with difficult realities rather than look away from them. If you're listening during the holidays and this episode brought up something personal, please remember, help is available, and reaching out is not weakness, it's survival. Before you go, if this episode mattered to you, please take a moment to follow or subscribe to Dark Dialogue Distilled wherever you listen. Rate and review the show if your platform allows. It genuinely helps more people find these conversations. And if you know someone who should hear this episode, share it with them. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future episodes across the Dark Dialogue Network. Those small actions make a real difference, and They allow us to keep doing this work thoughtfully, responsibly, and without compromise. Most importantly, however you celebrate, or even if you don't, be gentle with yourself. Check in on the people around you, and don't assume that silence means peace. We'll be back soon with more conversations that matter. Until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and keep the dialogue alive. Merry Christmas.